Rogue Dubai Wadapalooza, October, December, January.
Yeah.
And Rogue is a predominantly European-dominated athlete field to begin with. So I feel like Rogue should be a part of that, not the CrossFit Games.
And so looking at these events, I don't know that this is necessary, but I'm just curious on each of your thoughts. Do you think that to be part of the Triple Crown that you would in fact need to be a licensed CrossFit event? Obviously, I know that Rogue and some of these aren't, but like, should that tie into the conversation, and would that be a good business move for CrossFit?
Yeah, I mean, they should all. I mean, if you're asking me, they should license anything that smells, looks, feels, wags like a dog. Like, I mean, it should all be under that. Like, they should want more, and they do. I believe that. I mean, there's 3,000 events on Competition Corner a year that are CrossFit style training events. Like, we need to bring them in. Like, here. I mean, Justin knows this. Like, the number one reason people train HWPO, underdogs, any of us, is because they want to, reach a goal or compete, right? So, and that's why they leave, is because they either like have obtained that, or like they don't have something to focus on. Well, they're everywhere. Like, let's just, we need our, platform that is, the Due North, the organizational platform around this, to aggregate those things and let people know where they can go to do these things. And then we can evolve. We can start to bring them in and give them more significance over time. Like that's a no-brainer to license, call them CrossFit. Like, we need to democratize that. We need to get that out.
Can I push back on one thing that Chase said?
Push away.
Yes, it's just
go for it.
I brought it up before. I'm just not a big fan of the CrossFit season and then the off season where we have massive events, and now we have no off season. Like, I just think eventually we've got to try to meld the two somehow, so that we are creating some type of off season for for our athletes, so that they have longevity in the sport, and we're not just smashing them 24/7 for 365, right? Like, and I don't disagree. I think there's some poignant things in what he says, but I'm of the belief that we've got to try to figure out how to do some of those things together, because if we just never have an off season, this sport is fucking hard. Like, it's really hard. It's brutal on people's bodies. It's brutal on their minds. It's one of, I would argue, it's the hardest sport to train for in the world. And so, I know that, the volume that these athletes have to do to attain greatness year after year after year after year, if there's just no off season, we're setting ourselves up for our best athletes having these really short shelf lives, and I just think that that's not great for the sport, and so I'm not sure how to do it. There are guys, that are smarter than me that can figure it out. But at the end of the day, I just feel like we've got to find a way to meld these things, and for us to have a dedicated off season for these athletes, which right now we don't necessarily have because of the way that the season and the off season are formatted.
Yeah.
Well, what if some of these competitions
Do you not think that a break from August to October, and then let's be real, there's a break from February through April?
There's no break. There's no break because if you want to go win $280,000 at Rogue, you better get your ass going. Like, it's like literally, why you're gonna have to peak for that. Like, who wouldn't want to? Yeah, there's probably some people that don't, but I'm telling you right now, like, he's spot on. Like, we have to consider how to create longevity too. Like, all these, like, listen, we're aging out a large group of superstars in our sport, major platforms that are almost impossible to rebuild. We got to think about how we can create longevity so that those guys can either stay, or that next crop, which is an even harder growth factor, but that they'll be, we create a longer runway for those guys to compete. I get it. Like, this is an age-old debate about, baby, CrossFit athletes being babied and not. Dude, this shit is hard. And, when I go put myself on the floor, I want to be my best. And most of those guys are like that. And they're going to train their face off to do that. And you can't do that 5 years in a row. And some of them have, and you're seeing the results of that. broken. So
well, what if these competitions had restrictions on the amount of volume that they could program?
I keep hearing that, Lauren, and then at every event they just keep trying to outdo themselves. So yes, I understand
Well,
what
and
you're
that's
saying, but
why
I just
this is
there's no
the perfect
evidence of that
opportunity
happening.
for the PFAA to come in and start working with competitions on these restrictions, right?
1,000%. I totally agree with that. I just, I haven't seen it happen yet. So until it happens, and until that's actually true, we keep hearing, oh yeah, we're gonna take the athlete's health into consideration. We're gonna decrease this. I haven't seen it yet.
Name a sport that doesn't have an off season.
There's none.
Chase is thinking.
Now take any sport you'd even put in the same stratosphere as what we do, and name any that don't take their foot off the throttle at a point. Like, it is essential. I mean, I can think, like, we've trained with rowers and triathletes. Like, they have periods of time of absolutely zero training, then this block that they do this insane amount of zone 2 training, and then they get into this intensity training, right? Like in focus training around the event. There isn't you can't expect these guys to be, different than, what is proven, as a way to approach a sport from, successfully. Like, it's science. Like, you can't do this to people just say, hey, let's go. You're going for the next 10 years straight, and you're just going to compete your face off if you want to make hay. By the way, we have the data. Like, people have done that. Like, hey, was Rich at his best and Matt at his best and T at his best all the time at the CrossFit Games? I don't know. I will say Matt, from my experience, was one that actually took an off season. There's a lot of arguments that created the best performance in the history of the sport. I don't know. Maybe there's other factors involved in that, but man, we gotta I want to see performance, and I want to see races, and I want to see all these guys we're talking about going head to head and eating each other's throats out at their best. And I honestly believe that there are athletes that are top notch in the world that go to the CrossFit Games and choose not to be their best because they make money throughout the year.
I think that's definitely true. I think I think it's something that's, we continue to debate. It's a really hard subject to ultimately figure out, but it's one that we need to continue to talk about, because I look at it from that coach's perspective of, like, we take a look at the season for our athletes, and we're like, this makes sense to do, but you know what? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense, because ultimately the way it's set up right now, like, we've got to think about your health. We've got to think about travel. We've got to think about this. We got to think, and I would just like to see this season set up that takes a little bit more of that into consideration.
Okay, well, we could go down so many other rabbit holes, but we'll do that another day.
He's got quiet. He's not happy with Justin and I.
Oh, yeah. You guys make great points, really, especially the off-season stuff and, taking care of the athletes. And I agree with you 100%, Justin, is that I think without question, training for the games or as far as the CrossFit as a sport, is the hardest of all in the world.
Yep.
Like, I don't even think it's close.
Totally.
Moving on now to topic number 3. Morning Chalk-Up, one of the longest-standing CrossFit newsletter publications, was recently bought out by Barbend and Pillar 4 Media, mostly known for other verticals in the fitness space, such as weightlifting and powerlifting. What does this purchase specifically mean for CrossFit in the fitness space as a whole? And just what are some of your opening thoughts when you saw this purchase? Matt O'Keefe, as a businessman, we are going to start with you.
Awesome. Leveling up and evolution creates stability around media platforms in our space. No matter where you sit on Morning Chalk-Up from your experience and, what platform you choose to engage, the fact that somebody, a larger media organization said this has value and we want to build off of it is amazing for us in the space and the sport. Some people might look at this as owning like what would look publicly as, maybe opposing media platforms with different approaches. And, does that create, a singular voice? I'm not that worried about that. There's so many media examples in the world where there are aggregations involved in their opposing platforms from a either a political position or how they cover sport or whatnot. But this is, I mean, there's nothing that I can say or see here that would say anything but a business within our space that's getting purchased to be elevated is amazing for all of us that are involved, that rely on media and storytelling. It's another platform that has stability to tell more stories long term for our space.
3 points for Matt O'Keefe. Chase, we'll let you go next.
I'll get it.
There you are.
Sorry, I had to mute my on. At risk of losing this whole thing, I don't really care. Like, this doesn't affect me. This doesn't interest me. I hope it does great things and continues to build a platform through the new Morning Chalk Up owned by Barbend, or how they're going to name it. But from my perspective, this is not a needle mover for me. So I'll just
Okay, I'm gonna dig
He's
into
holding
that.
me. I love this.
take my zero. I'm fine with it.
I want to dig into that, Chase. Why doesn't this move the needle for you? Why doesn't this interest you?
Just it's on my own personal interests. Is like I
Absolutely.
would follow. I'm a RX supporter of the Morning Chalk Up because they're a partner in the space, just like I am a Patreon supporter of pretty much every media personality in here, because I support media in the CrossFit space. But as far as like things that I pay attention or drawn to, or I think that interest me, a lot of the content through that are either things I already know or I'm not that interested in, and someone coming in to change something in a way that I don't really see affecting my personal interest is of no interest to me to begin with, unless they, start promoting Orange Theory and F45 over CrossFit. But other than that, this is, like I said, I'm happy to take my zero with no opinion or care of this whole.
You don't see like a leveling up, an amplification opportunity, like a stabilizing opportunity for something that's obviously a trusted source for a lot of people in our space.
The Morning Chalk Up being a trusted source.
There's a lot of people that read it and follow it on a daily basis. I mean, I quite frankly, I'm not saying that that's my news source. I'm just saying there's hundreds of thousands of people that are engaged in that for how they get their news.
I'm not discrediting other people's engagement. No.
Yeah, but even more so, if you question like its validity, isn't that an opportunity for it to get more valid at this point? That the actual reputable news agency, outfit business is going to, invest in and then, bring it forward. I mean, there's, hey, you can critique any platform in the space,
sure,
and find, faults in them. The Morning Chalk Up has contributed to growth in our space. Fact, because it's telling stories about athletes, CrossFit, and you can argue like it's created controversy at times, for sure, right? But quite frankly, it's a really trusted platform by a lot of people in our space, and it's only seemingly going to get better, more stable, and more directed. Like, I don't know, I don't know why that wouldn't interest you.
I would say the news source that has actively tried to spread disinformation about the games team exclusively and maybe lack of affiliate support over the years does not interest me. So I would hope, here's my take, I would love for Barbend and Pillar 4 to actually bring a bit more legitimacy and trust to its news. How about that?
Well,
that's kind of part of my point. That's part of my point there is like if you're taking, I mean, I would assume because, and I know as you do, like everybody involved with all those things, and Barbend had been a more direct news source on that side for a long time, right? Like, but this is a leveling up at that point, isn't it? Like it's a, well, and again, I don't know what the sort of, strategy is from, whomever's bought it. Is it like keep doing what you're doing and doubling down on the chaos? Then you're right? But I mean, knowing what I know about it at this point, that's not the case. It's only an opportunity for this thing to get better and more pointed. And
I mean, I hope it does. Yeah. And you, like I said, you made great points about it. You have more interest in understanding the system. Yeah. I'm coming from a place of my own personal experience, both individually and professionally. And yeah,
we just don't want to here, that's completely valid. And Justin, by the way, when we're done, you can talk. So
Well, thanks. I didn't know.
He's sipping water on the side.
I'm just listening at this point.
we just, it's hard to build what is that, and
right, and I'm not trying to tear it down. I'm just saying is I am of the opinion to have not a major stance on one way or the other. That's what I'm saying.
No, and you are open to that opinion, and that's what I love about this show is that we can have these debates, and then we can all go have a coffee together. But my only follow-up question to you, Chase, and then we will get to you, Justin Kotler, is do some of those thoughts, feelings, maybe concerns have to do with said former owner, though?
I don't know the inner workings of Morning Chalk Up enough to make any type of ownership, leadership, accusation, or intent, right? And that's the line I'm trying to walk is I have my own personal experience of what I have seen come out of the Morning Chalk Up. They've done a lot of positive, but they also have focused on a lot of negative. They're called the TMZ of CrossFit for a reason, and I don't think that is necessarily an endorsing title to be given.